Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well. I'm sorry I couldn't be there tonight. I'm out, I'm not sure if you all know this, I'm going out to the Blue Jays game with my exchange students and having a nice little send off with them. But I did have an opportunity to kind of sit down, take some time away from work today and kind of record what I want to talk about my different action plans we're going to cover in our class. So maybe, I think we only have 5 minutes is what Bianca said, so I'll kind of jump right to it. But I had two that really stuck out, but they're all at least okay, I thought. I love the feedback I got from each of the instructors, so whoever's there, thank you. Yeah, so the first action plan I want to talk about is when I actually took away from Sigrid's class, supporting language acquisition, and maybe to my kind of my motivation behind it was something that was what I experienced when I was an international student in Australia. So when I went to Australia, my dad gave me this really cheesy going away gift. It was like a passport-sized Australian dictionary to kind of help convert slang and what what the kind of things you're going to be hearing when you're there. And so while I was there, one of the terms was avro, which actually means afternoon in slang for like Australian speak and stuff. And so I remember being in class in my first second week, maybe third week, and meeting a bunch of people, and they said, "Yeah, we'll meet tomorrow." And like, "When's good for you, Todd?" And I was like, "Okay, well, let's meet tomorrow, avro, maybe like 3." And no one bat an eyelash, no one flinched. And it was at that moment that I really felt really connected and felt really transitioned and at least in the process and felt very kind of welcomed. And I kind of had it. I kind of got the verbiage. I knew what I was doing. So what I was doing with this action plan was to kind of create some form of dictionary, whether it be for Canadian slang on like a Humber level, so certain kind of terms that will be relevant to being a student here, but also terms living in Toronto, and then maybe some things that we take for granted that maybe we don't even think of. So for instance, like streetcar or TTC or things like that. And so the biggest things for me were to develop like a resource for students and that they kind of have some words in the back of their mind that can kind of just drop out there with their interactions with domestic students, but then also help them kind of develop that sense of culture, sense of place, and that kind of goes back with some research I did when I was in Australia, but that's another story. So one of the major feedback bits I got from Sigrid was to not only have dictionary definitions and terms, but rather actually have opportunities for students to engage with those new terms, that new language. So she suggested like crosswords and stuff, but also have an area for notes, and students can kind of write down anything new they see, and they can kind of revert back and all that sort of thing, because obviously I'm not going to be one voice for all of Toronto slang, so their experience obviously would be different than what I'm perhaps framing for them. So definitely included that, and I'll actually flip to the, I'll show you my screen on my laptop for what the development of my dictionary looks like so far. Okay, so these are the kind of images I'll be using in the dictionary. So for instance, each of the we got used, so like, first year life or first year experience or international center and so on, and kind of letting students recognize what those logos mean and kind of translating what they can do for them and the services available to them. But then other things like, like the streetcar and what TTC is and what that logo means and, how to get downtown. But to things like, Toronto Raptors or like the Maple Leafs and stuff like that. So, and then finally HSF. So these are the kind of like context or the examples that I'll be putting in there. So have the picture, have the word broken down phonetically beside it, and then have a bit of a definition as to what it is. Yeah, I thought it'd also be useful to show you guys kind of like how I'm setting this up. So with my sister being a graphic designer, I'm using InDesign here, and still work in progress, but here's like, kind of like an example cover page, what it might be, and then as I scroll down, like, example of like, I have like the word based off of the definition and broken down that has some pictures beside it so students can kind of associate the two, and then as I have multiple pages of this, and as we sort down, have an area for students to have their own notes and definitions, and then kind of like an area where they can kind of trial things themselves. So that's kind of the makeup of what I'm looking like. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. With my sister being a graphic designer, being the person doing it, she's a little busy, so still work in progress. But the main takeaway I think here is that I also want to do two more things. One is connect with like the EAL or ESL program at Humber to kind of do like a phonetic breakdown of each of the words, and that's something I haven't had a chance to do yet, but that will be like my next step. And then finally, whenever this is all done, have this become a part of the orientation or welcome package for all of our international and exchange students. And so I've been speaking a little bit with Rebecca about it kind of in general about how that works, but that's something I'll be pushing through maybe for this summer, looking ahead to September next year. My second action plan comes from Melissa Whistle's class, so intercultural communication. And I think I spoke at this at length a few times in class, so bear with me here. But essentially what I found is joining the role in January where I am now, we have these excursions. We have once per semester for students, and we take them to a winery and to Niagara Falls out in Niagara-on-the-Lake, Niagara Falls area. And we did it a few weeks ago, and it's a really good time. And I think the students do enjoy themselves, and they definitely have an opportunity to kind of mingle with each other and talk with us and stuff, so it's all very positive. But I also feel like it's a little bit limiting in some ways, and I think trying to find maybe perhaps a little bit more authentic, a little bit more purposeful out of what these excursions are. And so that's where this kind of action plan comes in. So in line with my first action plan, I think developing a sense of place is a very high priority for me when it comes to exchange students or international students as a whole. And so I think also having an understanding of, whether it be authentic Canadian or Toronto experience, or perhaps even like an understanding of the history of where you are, I think that's something that's also really important. So presently I've explained how it is in Niagara Falls, but my goal is to kind of create some form of excursion or series of excursions that add maybe depth and a little more breadth to what the programs we offer for our exchange and our international students are. One of the main bits of feedback that Melissa gave me was, to make sure that whose perspective am I attempting to include when it comes to, showing off Toronto, maybe as opposed to taking students away, going to Niagara Falls, where they're actually studying. And that was something that was interesting because we spoke about a lot of this in class. Is, is this a white, able-bodied, heterosexual male version of Toronto, or is this going to be more of like an inclusive environment? And so that's something that her suggestions she had were saying, are we going to have any Indigenous elements? Are we going to demonstrate the different levels of like socioeconomic class in Toronto, whether it be poverty, but also like the financial district? And these are things that I've definitely had to consider. I think the idea of having some form of Indigenous integration will be useful, I think, to show what was here before, what's here now, and our relationship with it. I think that could be a worldly or global skill that students could then perhaps take as a perspective to reflect on their own lenses and their own experiences back in their home country. I think one of the big reasons that I've had some trouble with this particular action plan, though, was I don't want to create an excursion, create a partnership, create an idea that students aren't going to really be invested in. And it can be a ad hoc basis, or every single semester a different group of students come in, different interests, different skill sets. So I think a lot of this will have an emphasis on when I first meet students and have an opportunity to meet them and talk about, what are they interested in and what do they want to get out of their experience here in Toronto, and then perhaps really drive my excursions, drive my programming from that point on. Because I think that way at least the students maybe will have a little bit more specialized, they'll see it, that I'm trying to make things more catered to them, and maybe perhaps take ownership in their time here as an exchange student a little bit more. Yeah, and then from there I think it's just a matter of not being afraid to just try and maybe even make mistakes along the way. So getting feedback from the students saying what works, what doesn't work. So for instance, I'm going to the game tonight, I'm going to talk to them saying, what do you wish, you're on the way home in the next week or two, what do you wish you learned, what do you wish you got to explore, what do you wish you got to learn more about, hear about, experience, so on. So I think that, and then also not being afraid to get out there myself and maybe volunteer and try things first. So whether it be a community partnership where maybe students can volunteer and become regularly involved somewhere in the community, get involved myself and do it first. So that's something that I think, again, will take time, and I have some opportunities and some ideas already, whether it be through Street Art Toronto or a few other things I have on the go. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand, and that kind of brings me back to the end of my 2 action plans. Yeah, so that's the end of my video there. I know I've already ran long, Bianca, I'm sorry. But I just want to say thanks to you, Bianca, and the rest of the instructors, and also you guys in the class. Thank you so much for the conversation and the company and the bit of camaraderie we kind of developed over the last 15 weeks or so. Whether you guys want to connect with me via LinkedIn, email, whatever, whether it be for your students talking about study abroad or just, professional stuff down the road, always open to that. And yeah, I wish you guys all but the best. Nothing but the best. And hopefully we'll cross paths on campus sooner rather than later. All right, thanks a lot. Take care.